So our goals for this workshop are to kind of have a postmortem debrief about the entire elementary school project, which an hour I think is short, but also we're in the middle of 2 community conversations where a lot of info is being held. So I think we're going to have a lot to work with. So Dana had sent out an email asking everybody to think about what went well, what didn't go well, and what questions do we have. So I feel like a good format might be to just, because we're small, just to go around and kind of talk about each question in that order. And I'll just keep an eye on the time and just keep an eye on the focus and just interrupt if we kind of get off track or if we are spending too much time on a question.
Okay.
I just have a question, but I don't know. Because I wasn't able to attend because of the late start, and it's no one's fault. Did anyone go? What happened?
Yes.
Maybe like the top 3 highlights.
Sure. So interestingly, it was the 3 of us
really
who
wanted
were
to-
there. Well, there's another one on the 29th.
Oh yeah, that's why I go to that.
Yeah,
one.
there
I
wasn't,
just
yeah,
couldn't.
so, and it was, I mean, it was extremely well attended. It
yeah, it
was
was great.
wonderful,
It was.
especially given that it was like an horrible,
Yeah,
icy
icy
day. So, I mean, I don't know is that helpful if we start with just kind of our, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
do you want to share what your impressions were of the?
I thought the turnout was great. I thought everybody was really actively engaged, collaborative. I think there were a lot of good suggestions. I think it was good to hear directly from the community in that forum. I don't think that at least in terms of things that were said out loud, I don't think there was any big surprises, but there were portions of the workshop where people submitted ideas and other things in writing, and that data is still being gathered because there will be one more workshop. So I'll be curious to see any like final reporting from Eric about like the final kind of amalgamation of all that data. But I thought it was really great. So I mean, it was informative, I would say too.
Was it like a back and forth? Was it just people talking, asking Eric
There was,
questions?
you were in small table groups, so
Oh,
there was a
small
like
groups.
discussion. At least I
That's
can't, you guys, it would be
great.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like my table had a diversity of opinion, and I don't know if yours both did also, but that was helpful. Like, and I did speak to someone that I know a little bit, and she said the same thing, that her table group was very diverse in their opinions, and that was, I wish I could frame it exactly how she said it, but she said it nicely. She sort of said, well, I heard some ideas that I hadn't heard
Thought of.
before from the other side, and I think they heard some things from me that they hadn't heard before. She was clear that she didn't feel like anyone changed their mind, but she felt like, so I felt like that was good feedback.
Conversation.
That that was good, and I would say that was true at the table I sat at as well. But it really was just information gathering, like it was just gathering tons of information.
Did they ask those 3 questions that we're asking?
No, it was really,
It was, yeah.
more specific. I mean, Eric used this format of the
Six
hats, yeah.
Cool.
Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, and I don't want to take too
No,
much time.
and I'm guessing the other one will be
Yeah.
a similar structure. So, but I think it was a great format for a couple reasons. One, because he asked us to have conversations as a table, but also was collecting individual answers.
Right.
So it gave people a chance to have a conversation, but also give their own answers. That's okay. There's no problem.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the data, but I really liked being able to speak to people face to face and have conversations, because I think that is, I don't know, just kind of the best way to hear what people are saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else want to add anything?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, I hope that the turnout on the 29th is as good, if not better, but I mean, it really was,
And it was recorded, so if you want to watch it, you can.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
as is this being recorded.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. I'll
Okay.
watch the recording.
So let's talk a little bit about what went well with the last handful of years.
Two to
2.5
3
years, 3 years. And I mean, I'm interested in everybody's feedback. Kristen, I feel like your feedback I'm interested in because for a good chunk of that time you weren't on the committee, so you were
For all of that time.
Yeah.
right. That's true. That's true. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm interested in what everybody has to say, but not to put you on the spot. You
Yeah.
don't have to answer right away.
Okay.
So, but you can. if you
Okay,
want
yeah,
to.
and so I don't actually have the questions up, but the first question
Okay.
we'll talk about is what
What
went
went
well,
well.
correct? Okay. So I actually think there's always like room for improvement, right? And things that we can do differently and do better. I think by and large, I think it was a very professional process in terms of the planning. And I will say that part of what informs my opinion on this is that I did go to a number of the presentations with the designer, architect team that was held like at the high school auditorium. There was another gathering with the Mothers Club. Like I felt as though, at least where the ways that I'm involved in the community, that there were sufficient opportunities to be informed
Okay.
and to ask questions. I know other people don't feel that way, that they were not aware of all these things, or they weren't, done in a way where they felt welcome or whatever it may be. But at least for the parts of the community where I've been engaged, I felt like there were sufficient opportunities to be engaged in the process. And I'm a Wenham resident, so I wasn't as in tune with the town information that Hamilton was producing, although I was somewhat aware, but I was more paying attention to Wenham. And I think the Wenham Finance Committee did a really good job with its financial analysis, and I felt as a Wenham resident that we were very fortunate to have all of those folks volunteering their time
Yes.
in that way to do that, because I know that committee is a big lift. So I felt that that was well thought out, and they were very, clear and thoughtful and clarifying where their numbers came from, where their assumptions were made, and so on and so forth. So I thought that the financial presentation was also well done, because as we all know, like the town budgets include our district's budget, but also a lot of other things that the town, wants to accomplish. So I thought that was done well. I thought the design of the school was thoughtful with the different learning neighborhoods and things like that. The elementary school that I attended was somewhat organized in that way, not as formally, but there were different parts of the building where you had the younger grades and the older grades, and my school was K through 8, and so the junior high was kind of in its own wing, and I think like that to me made sense, because that kind of dovetailed with the experience that I had, and I also liked the idea of consolidating for a number of reasons. I mean, obviously financial, but also I think to make sure that all of the kids in the district are having a consistent experience, and they're open to the same opportunities. And I think also to kind of really kind of foster community in all of the kids, knowing all the other kids in town that are their age, because I know with my youngest kind of starting kindergarten this year, like some of his best little buddy is at Cutler and he's at Bucher, and like they're still friends, they can still see each other and things like that. But I think they're also only in kindergarten. I understand, like I have other children, friendships change wildly after that time. But just in thinking like how nice it could be to have everybody together and for kids to have the opportunity to know more of their peers and to have a better chance of finding peers that they gel with, and to give the teachers more options and creating homerooms and classes and things like that. So I did think all of that were the positives.
Okay. Great.
In my own opinion.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Do anyone else want to go next?
Sure. So I'm going to try to highlight, I agreed with a lot of what Kristen said, but I'm going to try to say things that are also different to me.
Yep.
When I looked at it, I thought, well, what went well? Part of it was just in terms of process that we met, in other words, we met all the requirements, deadlines for the MSBA. Like the district, it's a very complicated process, and we were able to go through that process effectively. And I do want to reiterate, I was actually on the call, and it was a call in which we were, getting approved by the MSBA, and the one of the questioners on the voting board there spent a lot of time talking about the educational plan being one of the best that this group had ever seen, and that it was highlighted by the MSBA. And I felt like that's really a question of what did our district, the administration, do well to make all those deadlines and go. So and to get to the point where the MSBA was
Yeah.
going to give us this much money.
Yeah.
So I think regardless of how people felt about the actual project, I just think it's important to see like our district was capable of managing something that's pretty complicated and doing it well. So I thought that was something that went well. Some of the things that Kristen highlighted, I did agree with. There were, I actually think you did it really well. Like we had a lot of gatherings, we had opportunities for people to come. I attended visioning sessions and things that people were able to come. I'm really glad that they were there. I see when we get to what didn't go well, I'm going to say we see that some people didn't feel that they knew about those or they didn't participate,
Right.
but they did exist and people did come and we did hear from people and it did happen. I think that's important. I'm so glad you said that about the Wenham FinCom because I didn't have that on my list, but I have mentioned that to people several times that both FinComs actually did a really good job of explaining it, and the Wenham FinCom in particular, there's a very, very long, complicated meeting in which they really
Yeah.
explained. They did a tremendously good job. Maybe I'll stop there. But maybe I'll stop there. But yeah.
Okay. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would add. I really agree with the Wenham FinCom. I think that we did a lot of great work, the quintuple boards together. I think that, there was years of work working with the towns on this project. And also, I was going to highlight the MSBA grant and what they said about it and how they said that it was one of the best proposals they'd ever seen. So in terms of what went well, I mean, if you're thinking about like the process and the vote, then I think those two things, but like the project, I was actually initially, like very, very initially, kind of skeptical about it. And it's interesting because I grew up in Beverly with like giant elementary schools. And now they're doing, the middle school is 4 grades, which I actually really agree with. But I do think like Eric having like an open door policy and talking to Eric and going to the visionary sessions or learning more about the school, then I actually became like a really big proponent of it because I really understood how it would contribute to equitable educational goals for all of the elementary school kids. Because, I mean, honestly, right now, I know we're doing the best that we can, but there's disparate things going on amongst the 3 elementary schools, and I think the parents see it and are very aware of it, and I think this would have contributed to a more equitable educational outcomes for students, but that's the project. But I think, I also think, it's a testament to us that I think that we had some really good debates at the school committee around it.
Yeah.
Like nobody was just kind of like, this is amazing, like right from the start. Like we asked really good questions. We had really great debate. We were not unanimous on a lot of things. And I think that's important for democracy and for discussion.
Yeah.
So I actually do think that went well. I would love us all to be unanimous, but I think it's good when we're not, Sometimes there's different perspectives that can be shared.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
No, but just I know that and I think other people on the committee did share when they felt like I've shared a few times about how my original vision had been for the school to be located at Iron Rail. I had said I had this vision that like that would, and I think other people shared when they had something that they envisioned, that then, we did the work to realize that that wasn't a possibility. I felt like that was good, like when people, because it was a difficult thing. There were pros and cons to a lot of different choices. I guess I just, process-wise, like I think that was good when people were able to, like people talk about the things that they liked about the smaller schools, and then being able to say, I see that there's
That's been addressed in the design.
right, or
Yeah.
yeah, or I'm specifically talking about the committee, like people being
Oh,
able
yeah.
to say, like I see this, and it's been addressed. Oh, and I'm, sad about it, but moving on or whatever. I
Right.
just felt like there were
times like
there
that.
were times
yeah,
like
for
that.
sure.
So
Anything else?
Oh, something I do think also went well is that we had a lot of community engagement. We had we very rarely have a lot of citizens' comments, and
yeah,
we had a lot of citizens'
Yeah, we
comments
did,
and a lot
yep.
of citizen participation. So I think that's something that
Yeah.
went well, or that was a good thing.
yeah.
That was a good thing. I just have one thing to add. I agree with almost everything that's been said. I really appreciated, from a communication standpoint, the website, where if somebody submitted a question, it was answered and published on the website, which, was for some pretty lengthy reading. But, if you could go on there and navigate and search for something that was on your mind, the information was there. I do wonder, like, going forward, if there's a way to make it more digestible. But I think that was really awesome to have a way to, like, an easy way to submit questions and then have them published with the answer, like, as soon as we could. Okay, move on to what didn't go well, or areas of opportunity for next time.
Yeah, I think what didn't go
What
well,
didn't go well is
like,
important,
didn't
yeah.
go well. Like,
Does anybody want to start with that one?
Well, to me, I can only speak for myself. I mean,
that's who you're talking
it
for.
didn't
Yep.
pass, so
That didn't
that
go
did
well.
not go well for me.
Yes, same.
Or for what I think and believe and advocate for.
Yep.
I think that towards the end, the discussions started getting very personal. And
Can I ask you what discussions? Like where?
well, I try not to go on Facebook, but I was getting sent screenshots of things from people that were being said about me, that were being said about other committee members, specifically in the Hamilton Wenham Facebook group, and then also via email that we would receive, or I would personally receive. So just kind of towards the end, it started to seem very personal and almost really not productive.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
the purpose of what we're doing is to
I don't know
serve students.
if you guys experienced that, but that was sort of my experience of it.
I agree with you. Anything else that didn't go well in your eyes?
I don't know. How somehow it got wrapped up with 3A, which is a totally separate issue, and we could not extricate it from
The timing
that.
was really hard, yeah.
That was just unfortunate and kind of beyond our control. I'm not sure if there's a lesson to be learned there, but I think that was something that was unfortunate.
That's true. Okay.
Okay. So I think a lot of things didn't go well. So I've really thought a lot about this. So I don't have the answers. These are things that didn't go well. But a portion of the public definitely did not feel, this is the feedback I've gotten, but a portion of the public definitely did not feel that what was being presented was true or real. And so if I'm saying what did we not do well, is that somehow I would have liked to have been able to better communicate that. And there are numerous things in there. Some of it was around that this was a 3A related project. there were just other things along the way that, so I think that's really important, that a significant, or a chunk of the population did not feel that the school committee, and I'm gonna talk about the school committee, maybe the administration too, but we are the school committee, wasn't providing truthful information. I think we cannot have this conversation without talking about the multiple votes.
Yeah. Yes.
I've said this in our meetings, if I could have gone back in time and if I had fully understood, I personally would have wanted to explore the ballot vote first, and ideally I would have wanted to have the public have a long lead up to understanding that. And
No, I
so
agree.
to me, that did not go well.
Yeah,
The
same.
optics are not
that
good.
it is optics, but it's more than optics. I think I voted for it. I take ownership for it. This was a very important project that I really believe would have been a benefit to our town, and I wanted to make sure that it had every opportunity. And it's real that people had to vote many times and
Yeah.
that it was divisive, and that didn't go well. So I think
I agree.
we need to take ownership of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop, but I have a lot of what didn't go well. My dream in building a new school, I have a lot of dreams about education and what's right for students. But many of us, I don't think Kristen was on the committee, but when we talked about the athletic fields opening, the feeling that I got at that meeting, at that opening, when we were there with like the whole community and everyone was there, was a sense of community pride. And that's really what I hoped to achieve with this school. And the level of division that ended up being in our community did not serve that goal. And so that's something that didn't go well.
I agree.
I'm getting emotional, so I'm going to stop.
Kristen, you have thoughts about what didn't go well?
So, because I was not on the committee through all this time, I have maybe more of a different view.
Yeah,
That's what we want to hear. That's what we
Also,
want to hear.
kind of like now I see things a little bit more kind of from both sides because I feel as though I have a much deeper understanding of the budgetary challenges and the facilities challenges. So I think obviously when you have a bad outcome like this, kind of whatever it is, I think the problem is ultimately like with the process and the communication about the process. And I think, for me, I think there was not a good understanding, not necessarily because of the fault of the school committee. I think there's multiple reasons why this happens, of who gets to decide things and when. So I think the fact that the idea of consolidation and the place of consolidation was essentially decided by a committee, even though that committee was appointed through public process, even though the public could weigh in on that committee and was invited to do so, even though there were opportunities to weigh in. I think that was kind of a major stumbling block for a lot of people. I've lived in town pretty much my whole life, but I would not say that I'm a, quote, necessarily a townie, because my parents did not grow up here, but I've lived here my whole life. And I think, if the consolidated school had been maybe presented for the Winthrop site, it might have happened. Because I just feel like there was maybe more of like a energy around the community wanting a school there, because they didn't want another use there, and maybe not at the Cutler site. And maybe I wasn't really aware of this, but maybe even the current abutters to Cutler aren't so thrilled that there's a school there currently, like of the current size. So the idea of a bigger school
They're not.
is maybe even less attractive, So, and I think kind of understanding like that there is this school building committee that's deciding these things, and when it comes to the time of the vote, it's partially because of the way our local government is structured. It was an up or down vote on the appropriation.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could say, well, I approve this if it costs this. My first choice is this, but I'd be okay with a second choice of this. When you have an up and
Or
down
have
vote.
three options.
Yeah, there's not
Right.
like an opportunity for like ranked choice voting or alternatives. It's kind of like the committee produces this as the yes or the no, and then the public has to vote. And I think that's very hard, and I'm very sympathetic to the people that had to walk that path now as we've been talking about our budget.
Right.
Because in a lot of ways, we're trying to kind of guess, what are the most important things for the district's budget to prioritize? How much expense budget is too much when you, like, it triggers an override, it triggers too large of an override. And also, I think just the cost of facilities maintenance and improvements, given the legal requirements of those, to have a designer, to have these things, to have prevailing wage and all this and that, makes that so expensive. So even on a year-over-year budget basis, I think the district's budget is probably likely underfunded to achieve what we're trying to do presently. And I'm sure that is a very difficult or unwelcome or even unbelievable message for some people, that our district budget is what, $42 million, how can that be too small?
Right.
And I think as you kind of get into the detail of it and you see, like, this is what we're paying for, this is what their salaries are, this is the benefits. I mean, I don't think people are getting wealthy by and large teaching in public education, and just how much is really left over to make the kinds of improvements that the public wants. Unfortunately, it does burden the real estate tax base, because that is our central stream of revenue.
Right. Can I,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
No,
I wanted
go
to
for
add,
it.
I had a meeting with a citizen who said to me, the way that taxes are, I'm going to try to, that it's, because I always think about like that, you have excellent schools and that increases your property value.
Right.
And that's true. And it is really true. I went and did some research after I spoke with this citizen who was like, my house would be worth more in Beverly. And I was like, really? Because I always think that's... But one of the things that I really did do some research on, and it is true, like our tax rates are impacting house values. Like that...
People are deciding not to move
People
here.
are deciding not to move here because of... And I really
Right.
did some research, and that hasn't been true in the past, and it is more true. So it's important on a number of my whole point is just that it's not just it's the tax rate, is we need to think about it in a big picture kind of way, because it is true that your home value is increased by having excellent public education, and it's also true that your home value is impacted by your tax rate
Right.
also.
That these things are all
And I think that's a
connected.
part that I've learned through this process that I wasn't, because I don't think that was the conventional wisdom several years ago.
It wasn't,
And
right.
now that is,
Yeah.
so I've learned something. I'm sorry
Yeah.
that I stepped on what you were
Oh,
saying,
no,
but
that's
I
okay.
just, like,
No, I think that's true. And I do think that these things are all connected. In terms of other things that didn't go well, I think, well, I have kind of two more things to say, I guess, and they're somewhat both related. I think, sharing information in this current moment, regardless of who you are and what you're trying to share or what your business or organization is very hard. I think we have never had access to more information, and it has never been more difficult to find what you're looking for.
or to find what's accurate.
Yeah, and I think that all the information was there in terms of the school district website, the town websites, but I think that and there could be emails, there could have been links, there could have been all these things, and all of that did happen, but I think people have become very accustomed to having information like spoon-fed to them and to find the most like frictionless path to information. So I think that if it requires like mining a website, a minority of people are going to do that, to go onto a website and find the information and read it and think about it and understanding. And I think it's really easy for no matter what you're doing to like post on social media, post in a Facebook group, try to Google it, and you could be getting 100% accurate, thorough information back, or it could be completely wrong, like regardless of what your question
Any
is.
question, yeah, that's true.
And so I think that the frictionless nature of the access to information that people will seek just as a society right now is
Yes.
something that we have to really be thinking about and making it as easy as possible for people to find accurate information. And I don't know how we do that. I could brainstorm ideas or suggestions or whatever. My concern is that real communications at a professional, consistent level just require a level of resources that the district and the two towns don't have.
Exactly.
Because I would lump the towns in with this as well.
Yes.
And so I don't know if there's a way for more collaborative shared resources to enhance existing communication functions or what needs to happen. But I think that is something just as a society we need to get to the other side of. And I think
Yes.
it's just being writ small with our local municipal kind of spending decisions, information sharing decisions. Because I think just because you weren't aware of something to the last minute doesn't mean that it was done underhanded.
Right.
Right.
You know, and so I think that that's a real problem. And I do think too, like as a longtime resident, I was very disappointed to see kind of some of the lack of civility that emerged during the process. And there's always been moments of that, but it reached a new, I guess, low during this. And I think, again, we're functioning as part of a larger social context where people are very afraid. Things are changing in society in a number of ways at the same time.
Yeah.
So I do think that these things can all feed on each other. But I was very surprised by the level of negativity. And I think a lot of people took that away from this because I think even yesterday at the community conversation, there was an opportunity people had to kind of weigh in on the emotional word that they felt conceptual, like captured the process for them. And those words were overwhelmingly negative words.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
And I thought that to me is also like a failure of this whole thing, that people are walking away with it with that level of upset. Now, granted, there was 50 people there, not all 7,000 residents of Hamilton and Wenham, but I think it was a pretty good
It was a big group.
cross
I mean,
section.
that's right.
you
And
know,
and you're right, those words were very overwhelmingly negative.
overwhelmingly
And
negative.
just want to interject quickly about the negative words. I sat and kind of collected the words and felt like they could apply to anybody involved
Yes.
with the project, no matter
Yeah.
which
Right.
you
That
voted yes or no. Like we all kind of felt the same, which
Right.
right. Both voting
groups.
groups produced negative words about the process.
Did they though?
Well,
yes.
So just to
From
my
the
mind,
at the
like,
meeting that we
meeting.
at the
Okay.
workshop. So
words like frustrated,
Oh, well,
Disappointed.
frustrated.
disappointed,
Well, yeah.
contentious.
So
And those were from
Everybody's
like
frustrated.
Exactly.
like it didn't you weren't able to determine.
Right.
But if someone said frustrated, you weren't able to determine whether they voted yes or no on the
Right.
school. It
Right.
was
And I do think that is an area that we could build on, where, if we're recognizing that everybody is frustrated, that kind of gives everybody equal ground a little bit. Like I'm putting,
Like, how can we make this less frustrating?
yeah, but also like, we're all frustrated. You're frustrated, I'm frustrated, we all
Yeah.
are sharing one feeling about it. So anyway, I didn't mean to derail what you're talking about, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to add that I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was it made an impression, and I think I was gonna say one other thing, and it just like kind of flew out of my brain. Oh,
Sorry.
the other thing that emerged from that too was like the number of people that felt that they weren't listened to, and so I think that's important too, because I think people need to feel listened to, even, and understand that there's a nuance between being listened to and people doing what you're saying.
Exactly, yes.
And so I think that was kind of a breakdown on this process as well, because just because people were saying they didn't want certain things to happen, or they did want certain things to happen, and those things didn't happen, it doesn't mean,
Or like, you didn't listen to me.
therefore,
It's like, no,
you
I-
didn't listen to me. So
Exactly.
I think in building into this process a way that everybody really does feel heard is
But understanding
that they might not
they might
prevail.
not prevail.
Right.
You know, that everyone will be heard as part of this process, but no one person or group is going to get everything that it wants. And yes, advocate your
And I
best
guess
for what you
to
do
be
want.
self-reflective on
Yeah.
that, right? We, the school committee, did not get what the school committee wanted.
Right.
Right.
And that doesn't mean we weren't heard,
Right.
right? Like, that's hard to accept, but
Right.
it's like that,
It's a good example of.
it's hard
Working
that like,
maybe,
that like, that like, people said, this is not what we want.
Right.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's,
And I do think that both sides felt disenfranchised, because now I'm thinking, I really do think that the voting was a huge problem, and something that we have to think about if this ever comes back around. But that first vote, wasn't it supposed to be here, and then there was too many people?
It was
the
a-
town
and
of
they had it called
Wenham,
off?
that was a bummer.
In Wenham, there
That
was
was
a
a bummer.
problem.
Yeah, and I know that there were a lot of people that wanted to vote yes, that got babysitters and were waiting in the rain
There were
with their
hundreds and
strollers,
hundreds of people
and they couldn't
outside.
vote. And yeah, hundreds outside.
And I will say that's all
just-
true, and I want to
Yeah.
say it didn't pass in Hamilton.
Right.
So
Anyway, but-
so
Well, I'm just thinking, like, I think
Like,
there's all around
so-
people felt disenfranchised.
right. No, I'm just saying like
Right.
that
And the
is
process, like you were saying, the process is just as much a part of this.
Yeah.
I
As
think-
the project.
I think the process is essential to an outcome that everybody can live with. I think it really is. I think that's because at least people will then say like, well, I had the opportunity to be informed. I was listened to. Now it's time for the decision-making body. I'll say that because there are so many levels of decision-making
Right.
bodies here that are connected that roll up into those final town meeting warrants. And I mean, I'm kind of like a history nerd, so I love town meeting, and I love that like we all get to go and we all get to vote, and like if we could wear like pilgrim outfits, I'd be for it. Like I just think it's great in so many ways, but I also think like all the things that make it great, there are also so many problematic things because you have to be there in person. Like yes, there is a bill pending to allow voting remotely and all these different things.
I mean, for people with disabilities and people that can't
yeah,
attend, it's
Yeah,
disenfranchising.
exactly. And so that's the reason why it's like there are downsides to this format. And in the 21st century, I think people expect that technology should eradicate those downsides. But I think the legislation hasn't caught up with that. And I think, you know, the government wants to make sure that the right people, you know, people are authorized to vote. Like there's all these things that I think can be overcome, but like we're not there right now, right? So you have this town meeting process, which historically very, very, very few people participate in.
Oh,
that
yes.
was I mean
So
yes, right.
I don't really necessarily fault the town government for thinking that the gym and the overflow spaces that were
Would
set up
hold
would
it.
be
Yeah.
enough, you know? And then we did move it to Gordon College, and the turnout was way lower.
Yeah, it was.
But to your point, it may not have ultimately been material because of
Right. There were 400 people at Hamilton that had never been to a town meeting before.
Right.
That was the
Wow.
clicker question.
yeah,
Was like, have you ever been to a town meeting before?
right.
I know.
And I mean and I mean maybe that should go under what's good.
That people were engaged.
That people were like
Yes,
people
that they
came
to
and
town
now they've been to
meeting.
town meeting. They know that I mean like
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I have under my what didn't go well is engagement. So, and everyone sort of touched on this already, so I
Yeah.
won't spend a ton of time on it because we have about 20 minutes left, a little less than 20. But not everyone was engaged in all of the information. And even yesterday when people were talking about, you know, ideas for ways to engage the community, that happened, but not everyone knew about it. And I felt like we did a good job of getting the word out, sending out postcards, sending out emails, and still not everyone knew. So I'm kind of racking my brain about like what are some creative ways that we can get the word out, get people involved in town meeting, and, you know, just in anything having to do with government, because I agree our form of government is very interesting. And it's a gift, right, for people to be able to be involved in that way. So that was my big thing for me, like what didn't go well. Not everyone was engaged in all the information. We had short form videos. We had long, you know, answers on the website. We had lots of discussions and meetings. The whole MSBA process is all outlined on the site. But again, it's really, really long and really, you know, there's a lot to it. So that was the piece for me. And then just to reframe or restate the lots of misinformation and not everyone feeling like there was a central hub for getting the correct information, even though I feel like we have that.
Well, I think it was just required too much effort.
It was a
to
lot.
get.
It was a
And
lot of
that's
effort.
what I think the
I've said to
problem was.
many people, I've said to many people in conversations, like I myself don't follow and watch every single, like I'm not watching every planning board meeting,
No.
every, zoning
Zoning
board,
board.
every
No.
select board meeting, I'm
Times
not
two.
like,
Right.
times two towns, like it's not reasonable to ask citizens
Right.
to watch dozens of meetings every month so that they can get informed. That's not reasonable. It's difficult to get information. I would be curious because the newspaper came in about a year ago, I
Right.
think.
Oh, if we had it the whole
Like
time.
I'm curious about what that would have been like
Maybe
because
the
one,
turnout for the community conversations was good because of that.
maybe.
paper.
I mean, one of the things I think that's good about a newspaper that it just appears, is that even if you don't read it, the headline is going to land on your kitchen counter and you're not going to have the experience, which I think a lot of people had, that all of a sudden they were voting on a school that they didn't know that was happening. I think if you had that
Local
newspaper
paper before
for the whole time, you would have at least seen, like, week after week, there would be before we had the newspaper, it would be mind-boggling to me that I'd be like, and I would sometimes ask Eric, like there's no press, so like this huge thing is going on and no one is contacting me, and no one
Right.
is contacting Eric. That's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Like now somebody is contacting and saying,
Yeah.
do you have a comment or whatever.
Well, maybe for the 29th, we need to ask people in attendance, how did you hear about this?
Yeah.
Right.
That was
To
a good
see
question. Yeah.
what's,
Have like an entry poll.
is it the postcard, is it the paper, was it Facebook, friend, word of mouth, whatever?
Good call.
Just to kind of see like because I used to do that with programming, always have a mandatory question, how did you hear about this program? So I knew like
What was working?
what was
working,
working,
yeah.
try to do more of it or improve other things,
Yeah.
So
a good idea.
that might be helpful. And I think you're right. I think the paper generally would have been an asset.
Yeah.
To the
I mean,
process.
I think, I don't know that for sure.
Right.
I just know that like week after week you would get a paper and it would have a headline, and even if you didn't read the article, the headline would have said like, visioning sessions on new elementary school.
Yeah. Right.
And it would start to sink in like
Yeah.
this is happening. And if you were interested in that, then you might
And you'd be more.
read more. And if you
Right.
weren't interested in that, which is okay, you don't have to be interested in every single thing, but it's okay, but at least it would be a little bit on your radar, like, oh yeah, that's out there, that's happening.
So we have about 15 minutes left, and our last question is, what questions do you have? But we can also keep discussing, because I feel like we're
I
having a
mean,
discussion.
the only other thing that I would say about this process is I think that that there were a lot of people that wanted to know the real cost of renovating. And I think that the construction professional consultant person, can't remember his name, I can see his face, but he had like white hair and like glasses and stuff. He was basically like, well, we looked at this during the process, like, based upon the kind of the back of the envelope calculations, it's gonna be, it was tens of millions of dollars to renovate the 3 schools versus like 40 million of town money and with the MSBA match for the consolidated school. And I really got the feeling that that was not sufficient for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even like over Christmas, I was talking to a relative who lives in town. And I was like, well, there really should be a study of all the buildings and
Yeah.
what they need. And I was sort of like, that was done,
Yeah.
And so it was just really like, again, kind of a missing piece of information. And I think that that wasn't enough. And I think it's really hard to explain to people why facilities work in the schools is so expensive.
Yeah.
Because I think it's one thing to say like, well, I just redid my kitchen last
Right.
year.
And it,
And it was
And it
X,
was
and-
this,
yeah.
and like, this is
Well, and
ridiculous,
I-
and I think it's a totally different set of rules.
It
I mean,
is, you
I'll
know.
just say, the very first thing that I said to Eric when we started getting the magnitude, like when I started understanding the scale that we were talking about, I was like, you know, I'm looking at the Cutler site and the Winthrop site and my Iron Rail site, and I'm imagining and I'm thinking to myself, I know what, I live in Hamilton, I know what $1 million house looks like.
Right.
I was like, we're not building $100 million houses.
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
easy to, like, I think as
compare
a
apples
lay
and
person,
oranges.
like, that's your first
instinct.
instinct is natural to sort of say, this doesn't make any
Right.
sense. Like, how, and so it's really important. Like, it's hard to educate yourself about, like, this is a whole different thing than what,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm just saying the same thing, but that literally was the first, I like went into Eric and I was like, I am
No,
not understanding.
I,
Like,
I think it's hard, and I think there were a lot of like other, I think very well-meaning, like, well, this town renovated this building for this amount of money, or this town renovated this school for this amount of money. Can't we do that and save all this money? And so I think it was very hard to connect the dots of like, yes, they did spend that. They put that out to bid, and the contract was signed in this year, and the cost per square foot of commercial construction using prevailing wage was X, and now it's Y. You know, I mean, I think like you had to go, I think, layers deeper
Right.
to get
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
some of that detail, and I think that's very hard, and/or maybe it was a feeling that more, for lack of a better term, like due diligence had to be done, and really kind of explaining renovating is not an option because of the code triggers this and that, and that, you know, like once you start touching this building, you're now gonna have to put in sprinklers, you're now gonna have to do this. And meanwhile, you can't do that over February break.
Right.
So we're renting a fleet of trailers to put out here on the grass where all the kids are gonna go to school for a year or two while we kind of do all this. And so I think there are so many pieces to that I think were not spelled out with sufficient detail. The tricky bit of it is, I think, to actually get to that level of detail would be very costly.
Exactly.
So I don't know what the feeling is or the willingness is to pay for supplemental, I will say, because I don't think we need to start from scratch, but to build on work that was done, like supplemental design type
Estimates.
work to get to those estimates.
I mean, because I think if we had a magic wand, of course, everyone would want, I want that. I would
yeah, of
want
course.
full design of what it looks like to build 3 new elementary school, what it looks like to build one, what it looks like to renovate all 3. But
It's very
each one
expensive.
of those things costs a ton of money.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you know, right, the people who said they would really have loved if we could vote, do you want this or do you want that? Like, yeah, me too. I would have loved to have that, but it cost over $1 million to get to where we were, and you can't, like, I don't know. So
And maybe-
but I'm so empathetic with that
Of course, yeah.
thought process because it makes sense.
Well, it's what you would do in your like home life, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that that's most people's frame of reference. And so you
Which
would
makes
think
sense,
if I were doing
totally.
this at home, I would get like 3 quotes and then I would make a decision, you know, and
right, and you
like,
might have like the dream. If you were doing a bathroom, you'd have like the dream bathroom, the middle one, and the like just get it done, and like
Okay,
you'd
yeah.
like to like, and then you compare, and then you'd make decisions about.
right. And so I think everyone maybe was not sure that we were not just going for the dream bathroom with
Yes.
no quotes.
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
that seemed
You
to
know
be
what?
the.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really good
Yeah,
analogy.
I
good
think
analogy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if thinking about next steps and if we're considering doing something on our own, not through MSBA, that might be a benefit where we can say, here are 2 options. Like if we're kind of doing it our own way. Like so much of the MSBA process dictated how everything was structured, and it created some pain points for, you know, how people think about renovation and how people think about choice and things like that. So maybe that's a silver lining to having to do it
Could
on
be.
our own.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yep.
We have 8 minutes left. Did we not say anything
Well-
anybody wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big question you said,
Yeah,
like, what are the questions? I'm hoping, and I think we're gonna get, I think we're getting it, but I'm hoping we're gonna get clearer on what the public, we got a vote and the public doesn't want this. So I would love it if I could get clearer on what the public does want. And I'm getting mixed messages right now.
Lots, yeah.
And so I'd really love some way, the question was, what's the question, not what's the answer. I don't have the answer. My question is, I would really love to know what, if anything, what the majority of the people would want. Whether that, and I'm hearing, is that a renovation of one school? Is it a renovation of 3 schools? Is it a renovation of 2 schools? Is it a new Cutler school, just the Cutler size it is right now, and then 10 years from now, a new Winthrop school? I don't know, and I want to hear, and that's my question. We don't
a
need to
tough
answer
one,
that.
right?
I'm not
Because-
trying to answer it. That's my question
Yeah.
is, I would love to know what the public actually does support, because when I talk to different people, I hear a lot of different things.
too.
And
I do
Well,
too.
I feel like the question is more, how do we decide what the public supports? Because there are so many different opinions and
Right.
different, we've got a whole gamut of people in different age stages. So like everybody wants different things. So I don't think we'll be able to get to the point where we understand or be able to do what everybody wants.
I know
you didn't ask that,
I'm not
but-
saying, because
yeah.
there's no way, that's life, right? There's no way to get,
Right.
to make everyone happy. I'm actually wanting to know what the majority of voters do want.
Like
Yeah.
51%.
Because,
I think we have to go for higher
Well,
because of the.
no, I guess,
mean-
but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
we know that the majority of the voters did not want this.
Yeah, we know they don't, what they don't want.
So what I want to know is like, okay, like, is there something that the majority, maybe that's the better question. Is there something
That the majority
that
can
the
get behind.
majority would get behind? Or are we so divided that in fact there is no, at this moment, maybe there isn't? Because like when I talk to people who say, well, I voted no because I wanted to build 3 new schools
Right.
over time.
Yeah.
That's very different than I voted no because this is breaking me on the taxes.
Right.
And I cannot afford to do this.
Right.
Those are different.
different.
But I think that's almost the way of solving this in a way, is to say, like, to come at it through the budget side. To say, how much more are you willing to invest in or pay as part of your real estate tax bill for all of the things that Hamilton, Wyndham, and the district are trying to do? I could pay $500 more a year, $100 more a year,
Whatever
$0
it
more a
is,
year,
right.
$2,000 more a year. I almost think, are we better off to understand the potential annual flow of revenue? Because I think that is more actually useful to the intersecting challenge of the town and the district budget, because that's what we're all trying to guess at, is like,
Yeah.
well, we want to do these
thresholds.
things with our budget in Hamilton and Wenham, but if we cut ours, the town's going to go up. Like, you're kind of playing chess in 3 dimensions, And so I almost think it would be better to ask, from 0 to whatever, how much more would you be willing to pay in taxes? And then have some sort of priority list of like, the thing that is most important to me, I'm making this up, is like, I want trash pickup twice a week.
Right,
I want
to get improvement in our.
I want
right.
the water issues to be fixed, with the water
Whatever.
temperature, whatever
I
it is,
think
like
these 2 issues are different, actually.
fully funding the pensions. I mean, there's so many things that the towns are behind on, that
Yeah.
it's like, how much money are you willing to invest in collectively advancing this mission of Hamilton Wenham forward?
I think that's very important. I think what Dana's saying is different. I think
Okay.
those 2 things are important. But it's very, to me, from my perspective, it's very easy to be against something. But it's very hard to then propose a solution
That works.
on the alternate side. So I agree. I think we definitely need to know how much people can handle financially, but we need to really know what's the direction, because clearly we thought we had a great direction that we were going in.
Right, and we were wrong.
So Yeah, so we'd love some, it's sort of like when Vinny and Eric present us with the budget,
Which is
and then
great.
none of us
Yeah.
talk.
Right, which we have to
And
be
they're
in,
like,
Which
do
we
you
have
want us
to
to
do in
cut
4
it? Do you
minutes,
love
yeah.
it? What do you want to
Right.
do?
Where we have
They
to be
need
in, like, 2
direction.
minutes,
Okay,
so,
they,
yeah.
they need some, they need direction from us, like,
Yeah.
are we going in the right direction? Are we going completely in the
Right,
wrong
and-
direction? Because what they don't want is to present the budget to us and have it fail, obviously.
Exactly.
So I think it's the same thing with this.
Yeah.
We don't want to present another project to the public and have it fail. So what, I would welcome everyone to tell me, you know, like in our conversations, community conversations,
Yeah.
emails, citizen comments, what
Do
are
you
people
want?
thinking?
yeah.
And they might not have enough financial information.
Well, that's what I think the stumbling
to-
block is. Well, how much does that cost
to make
me?
that right.
Yeah.
So that's
You
a
know.
good point. They might not have enough information, but I think maybe in a dream bathroom world, if we keep saying that,
Yeah.
what would they want?
Right.
I am gonna
Okay.
be.
Yeah,
We have to. We have to
So,
go. Yeah.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Now I
you.
want to redesign my bathroom.